Alright, welcome back everybody. I wanted to get the hair tutorial out for sure. This is going to be the hair section for the drawing that I've been using for all the other stuff. This is definitely the hardest, I think. Like, not digitally, like value-wise, and just to copy the procedure and stuff is going to be tough, but I'm going to try and make it as simple as I can. The first thing I'll do, I already have my values picked out just so that I didn't have to spend a whole bunch of time on that, and I already covered that in the skin and stuff, so you guys can go back to that. The first thing I do is just take like an airbrush, like a really soft brush. I don't start to work in strands and stuff. That's just, it'll take forever. So what I do is I'll just lay out places where I know that it already needs to be the darkest. Like the back of her hair is going to be the darkest. The parts that are coming forward on her shoulder are going to be catching some of the light from the front and stuff like that. Like the right side of her head. For anybody who's already been watching, you know my lighting source is coming in from like the top left, kind of from the side. So I'm just laying in the shadows. This is all with the airbrush. You can see, like, I'm not getting into any kind of strands. I'm going to be using tons of layers. So as an example, this is already a new layer from the base, because I don't like to mix any of them. That way when you're doing these shadows, if you want to get a hard line, you can just switch to your eraser, which you'll probably see me do here. And it's like, sometimes you'll want to lay down the shadow and then erase it and give it a solid line for some parts, and some parts you'll want it to be really soft. And it's really just the flow. You'll kind of see it when you're doing it. It's more like how I was talking about pushing and pulling objects. You'll see it whenever you're doing it. Like right now I'm using the eraser because I want to pull out the strands in the front. I don't want my shadow to be overlapping, but I need a little bit because that other bang is still going to leave a shadow on the other one. So it's like, just keep pushing and pulling until your eye is kind of telling you that that's what it looks like without strands. Like, I have not put one strand in her hair and it kind of already looks like volume, like fluffy hair coming out and stuff. So the bangs too, I wasn't really fond of how I did this for the line work. I was trying to do a decent tutorial and stuff, and when I'm doing line work and I know I'm gonna paint it, I'll think about that when I'm doing my line work. And like this is more so I was thinking about line work for the tutorial and stuff, and now that I come to paint it, like, these bangs are a little tough, and I might have dodged that earlier on, but it's fine. I mean, this is really good for the tutorial purposes too, because I'll show you what I mean, where since it's round and like you're not gonna really be able to tell where every single piece of the hair is going and stuff. You're gonna have to use a lot of blending of the strands. So right now I'm gonna keep the same dark value that I was laying down. I'm gonna start a new layer. I'm gonna get a pencil or any kind of thin tool, and what I'm gonna do is go from my shadows and pull them up into the light areas. So basically, if I make a line that's on my shadow, it's not even gonna make a line. So it's still gonna keep my shadows where my shadows are at. But then if I pull it up onto the parts that I didn't lay anything down on, or I erased earlier or whatever, that are still the lighter color, it's gonna make a line, and it'll kind of give you a really rough version of some strands. And like what you'll do is you'll just keep building up the layers. And I guess the best way for me to describe it digitally is like, if you're working with the shadow, you're pulling it into the lighter colors. If you're working with the lighter colors, you'll pull those into the shadows, and then the highlights are going to be on the very, very top, and all that's going to do is pretty much show you where the edge of objects are and really make the different sections pop out. Like, that's how you'll make the shoulder that's coming down on her or the hair that's coming down on her shoulder different from the hair that's directly behind it. Even though we're applying the same process everywhere, the highlight will break the clumps up and let your eye know what's on top of what, and really give it that final, like, just a better look. So you'll see I keep twisting my canvas around, and I'm just trying to follow the line work kind of accurately as possible, but also more accurate to the painting aspect of it, since her hair is kind of gonna be falling in that direction. Even if my lines are not appropriate, I'll still maybe follow them with the paintbrush a little more accurately. But you can play around with it a lot, like use undo a lot and just kind of sketch or whatever, and just have some fun, you know. Don't be afraid to try stuff out, because what we're gonna do, even on these parts where the lines just come off like real rough, like up here on this bang that I'm working on is a perfect example on the left, like how they just all stop right there and it looks horrible. What I'll do, since I'm still on that same layer, is like use an eraser to kind of fade that out later. So now I'm doing like exactly what I was saying earlier. Now I'm on a different layer. I'm working with the middle tone color, and I'm gonna be making its strands down into the shadows where I guess the mid ground is meeting the shadows. You're gonna want to do the same effect that you were doing with the shadows, and you just kind of pull it in or go over top of anywhere that you feel, you know, needs a little bit more detail or needs to make it look like it pops a little bit more. So I'll keep like going into sections that are light and kind of just stretching them out into sections that are dark. And now I'm busting out the blender, and it's pretty much the same thing I was talking about with the eraser earlier. Is like I'll make stuff, some places that are way too sharp, like I'll fade out a little bit, and then it'll kind of be like a fade of values that comes into the strands, and it makes it look good. Like not all parts of the hair, especially in like cartoonish styles, need to be really strands of hair and grainy and stuff. It looks bad. So some parts will be kind of smooth, and you'll see like there's tons of people that have way simpler ways to do hair, and like they'll do kind of the same steps that I'm talking about, but not nearly so realistic, because like I said, I like a little bit of realism in when I paint. So it's like there's a lot simpler stuff, but it's still, I still feel it's the same techniques. Like you'll see them, they'll lay down the shadows of like the form and stuff first too. So it's like even if there's different styles and stuff, I feel like the information is still kind of the same. So like I'm doing exactly what I was talking about earlier. Like I'm going through the different layers and I'm blending the parts that are just way too sharp. And like, see over there, I blended it, and then I'm coming back in with the brush and making it other pieces. And like you can kind of blend and then brush on top, and then blend and then brush on top, and it'll kind of give it more volume, because your old strokes will still be back there, but kind of blend it up lightly, and the new ones will be crisp, so it'll look I guess like hair. So I'll keep right now I'm figuring out what I want to do for the highlights, so I'm just going to lay down a color and just kind of play with some layers till I see something that I like. And then I'll just grab it with my color picker and make a new layer so that I have the color, because I don't like to work with the layer. I'll use them to get stuff sometimes, but I don't really like to keep them on there, because sometimes it'll shut it off. Like her lips right now, that's supposed to be gel, but since I moved it to Photoshop, it turned it into darken, and now it looks different than what the actual picture is. It's the same reason why her eyeshadow's not showing up on her skin. And it's like, it's just annoying. So sometimes you can use them to get the color, and then like just grab the color, then delete that layer, make a new one, and then you'll still have the same exact color that you had on the one that had the layer property changed, but you can just use it. So when I was going through there, I saw something that I liked for like a second shadow tone, so I grabbed that instead of working with highlights, because I was like, oh well, that looks like that would give it a little bit more depth and it really blends. So I just grabbed it and went. And now I'm going to the highlights, because that's my next step. Like I always leave the highlights for last, because basically the light is going to be flowing with the objects that are on the top, and you don't want to have them in the back, and that's why I start with the shadows first, because the shadows are going to be in the absolute back, the midground is going to be in the middle, and the highlights are going to be on top, even if it is hair. And it's really like, you don't want to draw every strand on top, but like you still want to have the same like principles and stuff, because if you start with your highlights first and then you start working your shadows on top, your shadows are going to be the lines that are like on top. Like with line work, how we're talking about, if the line crosses over, it's going to emphasize. It is kind of the same way in painting, especially with a cartoonish style, because you need some of this stuff to show. Like how I was talking earlier, we applied the whole process to the whole head, but now we can use this to split up what pieces are different and stuff. So like you kind of have to use the rules of art So like you want those strokes to be on top and to be clean and to be showing like the exact form. Like highlights, you do want to make as accurate as possible. But don't be afraid, like, at first to just lay it down, because you can, like I said, how we work in layers, like, you can just come and erase stuff. So just get it where you know you need it, and then just go back with the eraser. Like right now, I was kind of like feeling like, oh man, I'm just being way too, like, pussyfooted with this. So I'm just going to start just whipping it on there, and then now I'll come back and I'll erase it more towards the form of the object. And sometimes it does look a lot better if you, like, overran and then started to erase and like try different things. So don't be afraid to, like, don't always feel like, oh man, the only way to be good at art is to do it right from the beginning. That's not true. I feel like art is all about creativity. I love to go in, and after I get my value down like this, like on the real picture, I'm going to change the whole color from brown, from this dark black. This black is like just way too black. It was a good color because to show for hair, especially for like the values and stuff, because even if it is like a black, you'll want to have like the bluish tints for highlights and stuff. Like you don't just want to have a dark black, light black. I mean, technically that'd be gray, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. That would look like grayscale. So like even when you're painting black or dark colors, you still want to keep different colors in mind and values and stuff. But like, don't be afraid to just try stuff. I go in, I use the color changers, and I'll play with the eyes and lips and hair, and especially when you start to lay different colors down. Like if, let's just say I made her shirt red right now, like you might go back and be like, oh well, if there was a reddish tint to her hair, it'd look better with the whole picture and stuff. So once you start like getting into more processes and stuff, you'll start to see that you'll play with like the whole picture more. So like boom, I decided to add in the second part. I changed it already, like, and I don't know, that's just what I wanted. I mean, you can still do whatever. Maybe you want to stick with the black, but whatever. So basically, I'm just going to show you guys how I'll get rid of excess color. I'll use the lasso tool. I went to Photoshop just because I like it better, and like I said, it's a monster for editing and stuff, and this is really smooth, but I'll just use the lasso tool, and I'll grab it, and then I'll delete it. And that's all I'll do. Alright, well, I hope you guys learned from the video, and enjoy.